that's why, that's my take, if you will, on the Will Smith slapping. So.
That's your take on it?
That's my take.
That's your take?
What do you think?
I mean...
Do you agree or disagree?
I could see both sides.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. No, I disagree with you, Tim.
All right. I think we're recording. So welcome to Casting Points. We are glad that you are with us today. Joey is behind the controls.
Hey.
Hey. Shannon, who has been with us a couple different times, I believe. And we have a very special guest. Special to Shannon in so many ways because it's her sister, Brianna.
Yes.
So welcome, Brianna.
Hi, Bree.
Thanks, Tim. Love you. Love your show.
What?
Happy to be here.
Hey.
Thank you. Yeah. We watch you every day.
Thank you.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who we sponsored by today, Joey?
That is going to be. It's over there.
Oh, very nice.
Sponsored by The Point.
Thank you.
A way to get to the point by showing the Point Cup. Be sure to pick up a Point Cup at a church near you.
Called The Point.
The Point.
That is the point. Yes.
And a lot of you who are tuning in or checking us out, and you've checked out some of our other videos, have probably seen Miss Brianna on stage. She sings often for us. Does an amazing job. Appreciate you doing that.
I try.
That auto-tune goes a long way.
Thank you, Joey.
Oh, Joey.
I'm just kidding. We don't have that anymore. Dave Parker took that with him.
No, you sing for us on stage, and that's a pretty amazing thing, and that's a huge jump for you in your life. I mean, right? From,
yes. Yes. Yeah.
Like a lot of
Yeah.
pulling and encouraging, and but when you did it, you knock it out of the park. I love when you're up there singing.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Mostly.
So you guys grew up, well, if we remember talking with Miss Shannon about the growing up years.
Yeah.
You guys bounced around quite a bit at first.
Always. Actually, my current home is the longest I've ever lived in one place, and we are at 6 years.
Seriously?
Yes. Yes.
Well,
and I'm very proud of that, actually.
That is a lot of
Yes.
bouncing around.
I am very proud of that. It feels very good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when did you end up bouncing to... Well, you've been in Winthrop Harbor for a while, though, right?
Yeah, in and out of Winthrop Harbor pretty much my whole life, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You've been back for a long time this time.
Yeah, I moved back to Winthrop Harbor in 2007. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I've been back in the harbor since then.
2007. So Shannon, what kind of sibling was Brianna to you back in the day?
Terrible. I'm just kidding. Actually, we were always best friends.
Yeah.
We might
We had to be. Nobody else wanted to be our friend.
like whatever, we have each other. Yeah, no, she was a great sibling. We fought like sisters do. She beat me up a couple times, or I beat her up.
Well, we would fluctuate in our sizes, which was fun. So one year she would be bigger and beat me up, and then the next year I would get bigger and beat her up. And actually, that continues to our 40s. Right now, she better watch out.
Whatever.
Is that kind of like the puffer fish, like when it would expand?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Family rumble on the cast.
No, she was a great sister. She was the I didn't enjoy sharing a room with her because I was like crazy clean and she was like a normal teenager. So I mean,
Yeah.
that was the only thing really I think that I can think of that we ever like really butt heads on. Otherwise, we were best friends.
What siblings do like to share a room? Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually loved sharing a room with you.
Because I cleaned up after you.
It's one of my favorite parts.
Still like, come live with me.
Right.
So tell me about your growing up years.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll just dive right in.
Dive right in.
I want to make sure that I'm as open and honest as possible, but I also want to say that for the people listening, maybe watching, intently, like sometimes they do, I've forgiven a lot of people. Their stories are theirs to tell, and they're good. They're good. The world is bad. And that took 40 years until I realized that.
Yeah.
So before we start, I just want to say that I am grateful for who God gave me in my life. And I forgive them and I no longer blame them, but it is part of my story.
Sure.
So I'm going to be as careful as possible. And the people watching that are hearing me say that know who I'm talking to. And I love them and appreciate them
Yeah.
more than I could ever say.
Still part of your story.
Still part of my
Still part of your
story.
story.
Right.
Yeah.
So, my childhood was hard. It was a hard time. I was born into chaos, sometimes fun, but I had to grow up way, way, way too early. I had to grow up very early.
Now describe some of the chaos. I mean,
Okay.
that's a good word, but
So I grew up around a lot of domestic type violence, drugs and alcohol abuse. And when that happens and there are small children in the home, sometimes other people will take advantage of those small children. So I lost my virginity at 4. And immediately, not knowing what that was or what that meant or what happened even, I really didn't know. I remember specifics, like colors and whatnot. But what I know now is that right away I felt like I was different. There was something wrong with me, and I didn't relate to other people. And at 4, not relating to other 4-year-olds is not something that you're really calculating and comprehending. It's just beginning to shape who you will become
yeah.
as the years come and who you trust. And fundamentally, from the Bible, I've learned that children are to be protected. And so when that is not the case, it truly changes like chemically inside who you are. So that was, from the very, very beginning. And I had 2 younger siblings that my mind, being a caretaker by nature, knew I just had to protect them. So I was protecting them, 4 and 5 years old, hiding them in bedrooms. And I knew chaos was kicking off, get my brother and sister away. That is, to this day, if one of my siblings calls me and is like, my husband did this or this person did that, all of my siblings know. I will fly off the handle. I will not be rational. And at this point, I'm a professional, so I know what I'm supposed to act like, right? But it goes out the window. Oh, well, who's going down today? Because you just don't mess with them. Or my children. I'm very protective of the people I love to a fault. Yeah. They get scared to tell me because they don't know how I might react.
You know what? And to feed off that a little bit, I think that's part of one of the reasons I love you so much is that emotion. You wear your emotions on your sleeve.
Yeah.
And for good or for bad, whatever the case may be. And that's why I even your worship to God is highly emotional.
It is.
And you fly off the handle there too, in a good way, in a positive way.
It's such a good channeling for me. It's such a good opportunity to, skipping way ahead in the story, but singing to Jesus. I've always been attracted to music because I am an emotional person. I'm kind of artsy even. I'm just attracted to that kind of world. And because I'm an emotional person, I've needed some type of an outlet. Always. I didn't always have that outlet. So it would be channeled in a bad way.
Right.
As I grew with Jesus later, I heard a song by Stephanie Getzinger. It was really crazy. And the way that I felt during that song and the way that I was speaking to Jesus during that in my kitchen, it was like so peaceful. So I started like making that a practice, like not even necessarily on purpose for God, but because I really enjoyed that feeling in that moment. It was so peaceful. So people use worship to connect with God, but really God uses worship to connect with me.
Right.
And that, so when you fall later on in the story, when you fall in love with Jesus, the question stops becoming what can God do for me and what can I do for God? And when that turning point came, it was like, well, I'm going to show everybody what God can do for me.
Right.
It might not be on key. it might be a little like, woo, like Back to the Future moment when he's playing the guitar and it's like, nobody's ready, right?
Yeah.
But like, it might be a little bit like that.
Good example.
But for me, like, it's so hard because I do struggle with caring so much about what the outside world is thinking, doing, and saying when really it doesn't matter. But it's the way the devil gets to me.
Right.
I know that.
Right.
I know that.
You know that.
But here I am, right?
Yeah. Here you are.
It's,
But that
it's
chaos
my
that you were
gift.
talking about, I mean, that chaos, I'm going to go back to that. That chaos that you grew up with. And let's be honest, we understand now, and I don't think we fully understand, but there's brain damage that takes place. There's a
Right.
chemical change.
Right.
There's all these physical changes that take place
Right.
when abuse happens.
True.
And so you went through this at a tremendously young age.
Right.
You became the protector of the family, and you're still only 4, 5, 6
Right.
years of age.
Right. Yep. This is just the beginning of the story.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Okay, so that happened very, very early on, obviously, and I was kind of dealing with that at a little girl's brain. Meanwhile, the adults in the home were, using, and again, they have their own stories and no judgments, like forgiven. So fast forward to 7. Again, I have this feeling that wasn't able to articulate until literally a few years ago. So that's kind of crazy because I went through all these adult years with this too and not knowing. And that's why it's important to me to show and tell people, because I wish there had been someone, and there was actually, and we'll get there too, but I wish there had really been someone that I listened to or that like it sparked something in me much, much earlier, because it would have saved me a lot of trouble. And it would have saved other people I love a lot of trouble,
Right.
But that's not what happened. And probably on purpose, so I could be here today, right? So there was a lot of violence in the house, lots of physical abuse, just all the way around. Mainly my little brother and sister were quite protected from that. But I also have an older brother who I've seen twice since this time. When my brother came, in my mind, I thought, someone to protect me. I couldn't articulate that yet, but I know why it hurts so much, because it was the next time I was looking to a male figure to protect me. And he was 14.
He was such a mean brother.
He was 14 and he had his own story to
kidding.
tell,
Yeah.
and that is what it is. But
He was a good brother,
but this on this particular night, there was a physical altercation, and at that time we had like the wraparound telephone cords that were attached to the phone, and same.
Wait. Phones aren't
Not anymore.
wireless?
It was on the wall.
Like this.
exactly.
And so
Just like that.
chaos kicking off. Send Shannon and Eric in the room, tuck them away safely. And I go to call 911 because I learned it. Call 911. And one of the adults I was around the corner, so the phone cord was stretched. And one of the adults cut the phone cord and it snapped around and smacked me right in my face as I was calling 911. And so the phone disconnected and no 911. What I remember about that is the feeling of the wall on my back as I slid down, because defeat. I'm helpless. There's nothing I can do. Theme. This is a theme that carries with you forever. Helpless. What do? You sit here and cry. That was last night I saw my brother until I was 20. And I saw him that time. And then I saw him one time a few years ago at a wedding. But other than that, I never saw him again. So there was another time, this male figure, gone. That time, the adults in our house separated. And now I have like physical ailments. I have migraine headaches. I have asthma attacks. Like I have physical ailments. In my opinion, as I have not had an asthma attack in many years. I think it was brought on by the stress as a nurse later in life. I believe that. I have an asthma attack. I tell one of the adults I want to see my other parent. We go to that house. He moved. He moved. Now I'm 8. Gone. Another time. Totally on my own. Like, there's protect Shannon and Eric. Protect Shannon and Eric. That's it. And then you fast forward to 9. There's a remarriage. The physical abuse and sexual abuse and mental abuse that occurred in our house during those years. I would call it a house of horrors. Never said that before, but I would. It was not a good place. Now I'm 10 and 11, and it's the same stuff. It's just the same stuff. Now I'm 12, and I'm smoking a pack of Marlboros a day. And I meet a boyfriend. He's 18, and he moves in with me, and he shares a bed with me.
You're 12.
Between 12 and 13. 7th and 8th grade, he lived with me and shared a bedroom with me. I'm an adult now, and this is the way it is. But I'm also very smart the whole time. I'm book smart. So I have teachers that are like trying to help me. I had a teacher, my 5th grade teacher, I was working at Emily's about 10 years ago, came and saw me, found out I was working there. Visited me.
It's Mr. Blair.
It was. And
Mr. Blair.
What that touched me. I think I was like 33 years old or something. He came into the restaurant because he heard I worked there and just wanted to come and check and make sure I was okay. Oh, wow. And I wish he could see me now.
Yeah.
That's touching.
Yeah.
Anyways, so by the time I'm 16, I'm a mother, and her dad was a gang member, and he shot another gang member while I was 5 months pregnant with her. And the police brought me to the police station where the car where one of the people I went to high school with had been shot in. And obviously there's blood and everything everywhere. And I'm like 5 months pregnant, and it's back to torture. And now I'm on my own again. And then he eventually got out of prison. That's when Shannon and I were living together in Harvard. And Shannon had all of her issues and ended up at college. But
I blame you.
Where was I? Well, there was probably 8 of us that lived in that house. I was pregnant, not yet pregnant with Savannah. I was about to be pregnant with Savannah. But Harm lived there, and everybody in the house ended up going to jail except for me. And the only reason I didn't go to jail is because I'm the only damn person in the house that was working.
And you said Shannon was living with you?
I'm the only one that had a job in the whole house.
And you said Shannon was living with you?
Yes, I was living.
Oh.
I babysat
had to live with
and
me.
clean. I had to clean.
And went to jail, apparently.
Well, yeah, I told you that.
Well, I knew that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is when
This is when I went to jail.
So now I'm 18, and I'm trying to take care of my little sister, but not doing a great job because the people we lived with were gang members, and it was not a good situation. But one of them was my baby daddy, so I wanted to try and make that work. Well, stuff goes down. I was working like 16 hours a day because I was the only one in the whole house with a job. And I was, again, like book smart, like, no, we have to keep working for a better life. Work. all went up in flames again. And then I found out I was pregnant with Savannah. And now my sister is in a horrible place. And I deal with that. But it was a long time ago. But it was another time. I didn't protect her, but I was trying to work.
You were working. That wasn't about
Because she was 16, 17 years old. She was a teenager herself. It was just...
Doing the best you could.
I was doing the best I could
100%.
at the time with what I had. But again, same stuff. And now, another guy has failed me because now my sister is in a bad way. And boom, I'm pregnant with Savannah too. So now I'm 18 and with 2 kids. And everybody's in prison that I know. And I moved to Delavan, Wisconsin. And full disclaimer, I did, while I was there, try for a second stripping. Didn't work out. That is not for me. I am so for it I'm not for it. Disclaimer, I'm not for it. But I couldn't do it. Like
I couldn't do it either.
Hard stuff. Like, you are in front of people. There are people there. It didn't work out.
That's the point, I think. I don't know.
For
maybe.
a second, it was bad. I was like, what? No.
She's like, that's a scam.
It was a scam.
That's a lie.
Lasted one day, and I was like, okay, we got to figure something else out then. So
Oh, you don't mean like stripping floors?
No.
No.
I'm kidding.
No,
I'm
Tim,
kidding.
I was in Wisconsin at that
I'm
time.
kidding.
They're like everywhere. People were like, oh, you can make a lot of money. Yeah, I didn't. I made $7. 7. That's a true story. You can edit that out, Joey, by the way. But anyway.
Oh, no, I feel you.
$7. Crap. Although at the time it bought like 4 gallons of gas. But anyways.
It was more than minimum wage, though, right?
I don't know. It was probably like
federally.
towing a line, and if you have to be naked, you should be making way more than that. Okay. But anyways, moving on. That's just a small part.
Wait a minute,
it wasn't for me.
But that just kind of shows
At what
like,
age, though?
18.
She was 18.
I was like-
so
I
that
was 18. I was just trying to
She was
like
38.
figure out a way how I could like support these 2 kids and
Yeah, you're doing anything you can at this
Do
point because
what
you're
I
the
could
provider,
do.
you're the protector, you're doing everything you can. Yeah.
I was stealing their food from a grocery store that I found that didn't have cameras, and I would fill up a grocery cart, and you remember this? And I would run it out the front door because that was the only way to feed them. I didn't take anything extra. I always only took what I thought we needed, and that was a big deal to me because in my mind then it wasn't stealing. It was like Robin Hood. Like, I gotta feed my kids, man. Sorry.
This is all so true.
And stripping didn't work out. So what do you want from me? What? So anyways, that also didn't work out because I have a horrible conscience. And I was trying to justify like, well, if I just take one of those, then it'll last us a week. That's not stealing, right, God? It was stealing. That was bad. But I was doing what I had to do at that time. So when I met, so I eventually got a CNA. I went to school during this time, believe it or not. Got a CNA license because that was enough to like make a little over minimum wage, right? So I felt like a great big deal now. Okay, now I can get an apartment that I can afford for me and my 2 kids. So we did. We got a little basement apartment in Winthrop Harbor at the time.
So you were in Delavan, now you're in Winthrop Harbor.
Now I'm in Winthrop Harbor.
Yeah.
Yep. And between then we lived in my car for a minute too, and we would stay at the state beach, and I would go to that McDonald's on the corner to fill Savannah's bottles with the milk. Like that's how and then we got into the apartment. So we did that, lived in my car for maybe 2 weeks. And then we got into, but living in a car with a 1 and 3-year-old, don't recommend. But anyway, then we got into the apartment, and then my sister had come home and she met the love of her life and they had their son. But if there's nothing, it's so important to have like a net. Like, where do you go when you're 20 and you can't make it on your own? Like, there has to be somewhere to go. We had nowhere to go. We were it. So I was where to go. So her, Big Kevin and Little Kevin moved into the basement apartment with me.
She still was not the only one working. Kevin got a
Kevin
job.
was working. Shannon still was not working. Just kidding.
Enabler. So also you're the
I
enabler.
enabled Shannon her entire life
Got a
to be
job.
the princess that she is. But anyway.
That's why it's Princess Shannon.
Yes, it started a long time ago. No, just kidding. She's wonderful. But then they were staying with me, and that is when I met Avery and Miley. A lot of people don't know Jason is not Miley's biological father. People assume he is because he's such a blessing to her. But he's not. There's no blood there. There's no love lost because of it, but there is no blood. Avery and Miley share the same father. And I met him through a friend of Shannon's at the time. And I was about to turn 21. And I did not know it was my birthday because I was working 16 hours a day. And I came home at 11 o'clock that night. And Shannon goes, you know, tomorrow's your 21st birthday. And I was like, it is, isn't it? And she's like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, nothing. I don't know. I don't have work probably. And this guy was there and he was like, well, I'll take you out. And I was like,
Okay.
all right.
In the house?
In my house, yeah. She just had parties while I was working.
Well, she wasn't working at the time, so
This is
She
just
was
getting
she had
worse.
nothing else to do.
no.
Now I see why you guys please. No,
Anyway,
it was not a party. It was like
it was him. But anyway,
two people.
said he'd take me out. I agreed.
Poor
on
Shannon.
it.
Poor Shannon.
It's cool.
And that started my adult life because now I'm turning 21. And in my mind, that's when like it changed from like a kid. Now I'm an adult. And one of the first dates I had with him, he pushed a grocery cart in front of me and told me to fill it up for Harmony in Savannah. And I remember that moment to this day, probably forever. That feeling in that moment as a mom, I never realized the importance of feeding your baby. I knew you needed to feed them, and I knew I had to do what I had to do that. But to be able to feed them what they wanted and not like just what you could afford was like, you could have took me to Disneyland and I would have rather done this. Like all day, I'd have rather done this. And it made me think I loved him. And maybe there's an element to love. Now I know healthy love. I didn't know healthy love then. Then I was in survival mode and I was surviving without a paddle, you know, like there was nothing to catch me if I fell. I was it. Like I have to catch me.
Right.
So to have another human being do that, I was like, where do I sign up? Let's get married right now, please. And we did.
I think I love you.
I think I love you right now, sir. Sir, what was your last name? But no. We did. We got married literally maybe 2 months later. And then I got pregnant with Avery. Probably that same month too. So now I'm 21 with 3 kids and a husband. And
Which is really just kid number 4.
yeah, sure. He was the hardest one, but no, it turned out. At that time, he worked a good job. He made money that I had not seen. Problem being with that is that he spent money like I had not seen,
Right.
and it wasn't healthy money. It wasn't good, but I didn't realize or know the difference yet. I hadn't learned it yet. And so it was security for me. And it wasn't true security, which became a theme in my life. The security, I needed that my whole life. And so when I first got a glimpse of what I thought that looked like, I was going to do anything. I'd do anything to keep that. Problem is, a lot of, now, alcohol and drugs are getting introduced. And I was 21 with no plans for my birthday. So I had no friends. I didn't know what that was like. But he had a lot of friends because he spent a lot of time in the bar and he had a lot of money. So people loved him.
So up to this point, up to 21, 22, drugs, alcohol weren't really. You were too busy.
Not for me. Yep.
Yeah.
You were too busy.
Nope. Not till I was after. A lot of people don't know that. They assume that I always did.
Because so many people do start young.
No,
and it carries over.
I did not like it. People would do drugs in front of me, and I would be like, "Ugh, you're so gross." Like, it was not for me. I really, truly wanted better, and I was really angry
because you saw it. You grew up with it. You knew what it was.
I saw it. I knew it. I wasn't doing it. Yeah. Like at that. If only I could have held on to that, but I didn't. That got eaten right alive. But younger, I hated that, and it wasn't going to be a part of who I was.
Right.
But later, it was like, oh, okay, so if all these people in the bar really like you, now there's a lot of drinking, and I don't have to work all the time. In fact, I wasn't working at all for the first time ever. I was expected to be at home with the kids. He was very much like alpha male. And I was willing to trade my alpha female for that alpha male and be the unbiblical version of submission. There is an unbiblical version of submission.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hear me, please. And that is what I would become at the time. Problem is, that's now sin is getting in, and it's getting in my head, and it's getting in my mind. Now I've been introduced to lots of drugs and alcohol, pretty much at my exposure, and I wanted to be 21. I wanted to be fun. People were all of a sudden telling me I was pretty, and I was like, what? Like, sorry, what? Tell me more. But no, seriously, it was like fun. It was so much fun.
Say that one more time.
Yeah.
Like people were like, no, I never felt like I belonged with people before because from 4, I was different. I didn't know why and couldn't put my finger on it my whole life, but I never connected with anyone until I was drunk in a girl's bathroom with other girls that were drunk in that bathroom. And it's fun in that minute. But that's what the devil does. It's fun in that minute. That's the enticement, right? And that's what happened. I was like, I'm so like, this is awesome. Like now I have friends and I have this and I have that. And I could go out on the weekends and I can numb it. I don't have to be worried. And I can ignore things that I know are red flags because at least we're secure. We have money, right? Well, that lasted a couple years. And then the night before Avery's 3rd birthday, her dad killed another woman in a drunk driving car accident while we were fighting on the phone. Literally fighting on the phone. He said, "Let me come home and I'll quit drinking." I'd heard that before, by the way. And I said, "You quit drinking and you can come home." And 11 minutes later, he killed a woman. I carry that. I carry that now. All right. So now I'm 25 and he's gone. He got 14 years in prison. He served 7. And while he was gone, oh man, the world ate me alive, man. It ate me up. It was so hard. I wanted to go to school to be a nurse so bad. I tried and tried. And we went to Aurora and I was going to school full time during the day, and I was working 3rd shift at Edward Hospital at night and then picking the girls up from school and taking them to a babysitter, and everybody was mad at me because they didn't want to babysit my kids, but I couldn't afford to pay another babysitter, and I really just wanted to go to school so I could get us the heck out of Aurora, and it was like a cluster. Finished all my prereqs. Nursing, the nursing program there was they pulled your name out of a hat. My name didn't get picked. Oh, mad at God. I did everything. I didn't do drugs for those 2 years. I did as soon as I came back here. I didn't go to the bar that often. I went sometimes. I was 25, come on. But I didn't go that often. I was focused. I was doing what I had to do. Right. Didn't get picked. Broke my heart. So I packed up my girls and we got in my car and God did that too, because I had a little computer that I used my income tax check to buy at the time. And I found someone that I used to do brownies with when Harmony was in Brownies, and she was renting out her house. And I'm like, would you rent to me? And she was like, absolutely. And she did. And I packed my girls up. I moved up here. I was like, we're going to a house with no more apartment living. We lived like ghetto in Aurora. Like, it was not a good place to live.
It was not that bad.
Her apartment didn't flood with sewage every other week, but mine did. So we'll just...
There were gang fights outside of mine often.
There was gang fight. It was not a good place to live.
No, it wasn't.
I
was
wanted to get my kids out. My girls were really struggling. Savannah was having a really hard time there because Savannah was so painfully shy and so needed so much that I didn't have to give her at the time. And she was having a really hard time. I needed to get her out of there. The kids were not nice to her, and it was just very hard. And so that's when we moved back to Winthrop Harbor. And I was blessed in my mind for a second. I got the house and I got a good job.
Now, this is the 2007 that you mentioned earlier.
Yep. That's when I came back to the harbor. I got a good job. I got a good job in my mind at the time. I was making $14 an hour. That was everything to me. And
You weren't stripping.
I told
So
you.
that's what I'm saying. Like
a half hour of that. $7, remember?
Yeah.
But anyway.
So I'm saying.
No. So we moved into the house, and it was a lot for me. The lawn, the bills, the kids. Now my kids are like, Harm's like in the second and third grade. They need all this money for sports and for their bedrooms, and then their friends have these things, and it's just me. There's no child support. There's $14 an hour, and there's a $900 a month rent, and there's 3 kids that need to be fed. Mm-hmm. That's what there is. And if this falls through, we have nowhere to go. There's nowhere to turn. Women are not supposed to carry that. But I was so buried in that ever nagging feeling of not protecting. I'm still not protecting who I should be protecting. They're still suffering. But now I found out that there's this drug called cocaine. And if you just take a little bit of that, all that goes away. And now you're just pretty and you're just fun. And people know you have custody of your kids. And the more loserish you hang out with, the better you feel. So like, if you didn't have custody of your kids, I probably liked you more.
Right.
Because then I have custody of my kids. My kids go to school every day.
We all need a friend like that.
My kids ain't hungry.
So I'm friends with you, Tim.
A lot of people say that.
Well, you know what I mean. Oh, yes, we've heard about this. But no, seriously, it was a little bit like that. Like, you hang with who you feel you are. Mm-hmm. Oh. And that is what I did, because I didn't realize a refuge. In this whole story, God was always there. I always knew there was a God. I always believed in God. Knew there was a God. I was 100% sure of it. As sure as I am today.
Why do you think that is? When you look back, why do you think you knew there was a God? Where did that come from?
It might sound weird, but I would feel like sometimes he would talk to me. Like, if I prayed and then was really quiet, even when I was like 7, and I would like not move just in case it was really quiet. And I would feel like he would say something. He would make me feel better. Mm-hmm.
His presence was there.
His presence was always
there.
Yeah. Always there.
But who instilled that in you? I mean, even the concept of God. Where did you pick that up? I'm curious.
Probably from my grandma.
Yeah.
Probably from my grandma. I got the concept of God. And from being perceptive. Like, I knew that it was impossible for humans to form because it didn't make any sense. Like, this is too much of how then do they have an emotion?
Right.
7 years old, I'm thinking of this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a deep thinker. It causes me some anxiety. I'll be honest. It's hard to even have that mindset, but it's who I am.
Yeah.
So I knew there was a God. I just knew because nothing else made sense. Like, it was impossible. But I was a little irritated. Like, why? And then I would say, oh, it's because what happened when I was 4. Because I let that happen. Because I let it happen to other people I love. That makes sense. Okay, now it makes sense in my calculating mind. Oh, now I get it. You're right. I don't deserve it. Because that makes perfect sense. So
you
right
took it
around,
as you were being punished.
Not necessarily punished. I got it. Like, oh, you don't want to hang out with me? I get it. I wouldn't either. Like, a part of me understood it so much so that in 2008, I still would read the Bible too, because I like to read and I like to study. And I studied a lot of, I was having Jehovah's Witnesses come to my house for like an entire year. Got in a car accident on their way over one day and never came back. Isn't that a strange story? They even brought my kids Bibles. It was insane.
Really?
A whole year.
Yeah.
And then they got in an accident on their way to my house one day and never came back.
And you baked cookies and
it was so telling. I tried to be Jewish for a while. I tried to be Muslim for a while. Tried to be Buddhist for a while. Like, I went through and truly meant it, like, not joking. Like, I was serious. Like, what is this about? Maybe this is where I belong. Always looking, where do I belong? Because I knew I was different. I didn't know, where do I belong? Knew I didn't belong with Christians. That I knew.
Now, why is that?
Because they were really mean. They were really, really mean. And they were really judgmental. And their side eye, you can see it even if they're saying they're not giving it. And they were very cliquey, particularly in this area. And it's a small town. Need I say more?
Winthrop Harbor is a small town.
Everybody knew. Yeah.
I wasn't going to even engage, and I had already been hurt by the rejection. So I wasn't going to keep trying. I'm not going to beg. Like, if you don't want to know me, that's fine.
Right.
But you will know my children, because my children will get into heaven. Sometime around 2008, I read that your children could suffer your sins. There was like a passage that stuck with me for like weeks. So much so, I call up the only pastor at the time that I really knew, and it was Pastor Dave Adams. And I said, could you please meet with me? I really need to talk to you about something. I'm dead serious. To this day, it kind of creeps me out how serious I was, because I was dead serious. He's like, sure, yeah, absolutely. So I go meet with him, and I start to tell him, I'm like, so here's what's up. I have sinned so much. And I start just telling him, like, I'm not even going to tell you everything, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I am aware that I am no longer going to heaven. What I need from you is to tell me, how do I make sure my children still go? And the look on his face in that second is another moment in my life that I'll never leave. And he lifted up his glasses and he wiped a tear. And I was like, bro, what? Like, does it have to be like this? Like, for real? Like, not looking for this? Just tell me the steps. Because again, I'm a methodical person. I need the steps. I need directions, right? Water in the cup. But I need directions. So he's like, it doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. He said to me, that is the saddest thing I've ever heard from anyone. And you just really broke my heart. And I was like, why? Like, I'm so serious. Like, I know what I've done. And I have no excuse. I don't know why I've done the things I've done, but I know that I've done them. Because then, at that time, I really, truly didn't know. Like, oh, you're such a loser. Like, why are you behaving in this manner? You know better. You know better. And he really touched me in that minute, but I didn't believe him. I still didn't believe him. God had been talking to me since I was a little girl. And I still didn't trust the world. I could only trust myself. So I didn't trust what other adults were saying to me about anything. I didn't trust what other pastors were preaching or what other teachers were teaching. I needed to find out for myself because I didn't trust anyone else. That was gone a long time ago. And that, from the outside looking in, made it look like I was really just a pain in the butt. like that maybe I just didn't want to learn.
Right.
No, I didn't want to learn from you
Right.
because you are a human and humans fail me all the time. So,
And at this point, God has, in your mind, moved away to some degree
to some degree, yeah.
because you've given up on
He's
that.
there working on all the other people that
He's working
deserve it.
Right. Not you,
Right.
because you're, Jesus died for everybody, but your
But me.
but your kind of
But
sins.
me.
Right.
But
Right.
me. But you know what else? I didn't want to accept it either. So there was an element to that.
Sure.
Like I don't want to be forgiven. Like I don't want because I don't forgive me. So why
Right.
would I want someone else to forgive me? I was so angry at me that I didn't want that anyways. In fact, I didn't want to even ask for it, but I want to make sure my girls were getting what they needed to get because I couldn't even give it to them, but I knew someone who could. And so I would bring them to church. I would bring them all the time. I wouldn't stay, which is now looking back as a mom of Miley, I'm like, I didn't stay. That's kind of weird, Brie. But I wouldn't stay.
She was that mom.
I was that mom. I was. It's so true. But it was because I just didn't want to be around the other Christian moms. Like they were mean to me. They were not nice to many of them. Some of them were, but many of them were not. And they had heard stories and they already made up their mind and they saw my kids and maybe, now Harm's like 12. So who knows what she's saying in like youth group, right? Disclaimer, guys, your kids say everything in youth group.
It's time for prayer circle.
Right. Who knows what she's like divulging? So it's like extra. So
so true, though. I mean,
it's awful.
It is.
It was a terrible feeling. But time went on anyways, and we got through those years. And then Mike came home in 2012. And I thought, this is it. This is going to change everything. This human man is going to come home and make my life all better. Because that's what he did before, right? He was security before. Only made sense. Problems are here. Without blaming him for everything and owning my own, I was so mad. And before he went to prison, I was capable of being submissive. But imagine sort of being at war. You come back a different person. So when he came out, I had been through 7 years of single motherhood and in and out of awful, meaningless relationships for 7. I mean, one right after the other. They all have the same face in my head at this point. Like, you're all the same guy, just so you know. So you know. But anyway.
Why'd you look at me?
Not you, Joey. Anyway. All the same guy. Anyways, he comes home. I think he's going to fix everything. No. And the girls were teenagers now, too. So they're all so pissed. We're all mad. And he went right back to the same stuff, right back to all that. And I tried to be not mad about it, but I was mad about it. It was so frustrating to my soul. But at least he was back, and whatever, I'll take what comes. And in prison, people usually find Jesus. So he was down to come to church with me and stuff. And that was great because I thought that was going to fix it. That's what God could do for me. See, God, now I'm coming to church. Now you can fix all this, right? No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. In fact, it was a major disaster. I was clean at this point because when he came home, I was like, we are going to have a normal life. And I purposely got pregnant with Miley because I wanted another chance to do it right. And I wanted to be a mom, like a real mom, like not one that's like crying and stressed out all the time, like one that's like, hey, I'm going to take my kid to New York. Like I wanted to be a real mom. Like I wanted to experience these things. Like I wanted to be when my girls were little and coming home talking about their friends, like I wanted now to be that mom. Like that's so much what I wanted to be. But the problems came right. The addiction cocaine, alcohol, not only did it come back into our life, but it came back into our life in such a way that the devil was palpable. Like, palpable. You could feel it in my home. And I knew what it was. We'd even talk about it. Like, I knew. And at that point, I didn't do it yet. I hadn't done coke yet because Miley was 2 months old. And I was still like, I'm going to give this baby a better life. I'm giving this. But I was so lonely because he was like always partying and stuff. So one night he was like, I have a little bit. And I remember the butterflies in my stomach, like, included, and I can be numb, and nobody will ever know, and all those feelings. And I remember like yesterday, the first time I did it again with him, and we talked all night, and we finally like emotionally connected. Again, devil, that's what he uses that drug for, because you think you're connecting with people, but you're not, and it's so fake and phony and scary to me now because I can see it, but at the time it felt like I belonged because I still never really felt that way. I still had never been able to just breathe for a minute. I don't want to be the protector. I don't want to be the provider. I don't want to be. I want to just be for a minute. But I have been a husband since I was 4. Like,
Right.
I did not want to do that anymore.
Right.
And so, again, I was willing to trade what I knew was wrong or right in order to create the life that I thought God would want for me. And even if he didn't, God, if you could just make this work, that'd be great. You know, like I was still doing my own fruition. Well, obviously that ended in complete and utter disaster. By the end of that, I had been hospitalized 3 different times. I missed Miley's first steps. You don't get those back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I went to rehab, used again the day I came home. I was baptized when I was pregnant with Miley, but it was like it always stuck with me. Like, is there supposed to be like before baptism and after baptism? And so that all this happening after baptism is why it like hurts me more now that I did that. But I learned that it's okay that happened. I still really didn't know what I know now. Had I known then what I know now, probably someone else would continue to suffer because I wouldn't be here to tell you what I know now. And so that ended in countless times of affairs on his part after Miley was born, and lots of drug usage and very broke and just complete chaos. The same chaos that I talked about almost, because it minus the actual sexual abuse, although there were probably inappropriate things that happened on my watch that, you know, you've got a bunch of people over partying at your house and you've got your teenage kids walking around. Inappropriate. You know, I know that now. I knew that then. But I was able to not care. And that's not an excuse. That's bad. That's really bad. I wish I could take that back. But here we are. Anyway, eventually my grandma died. And when my grandma died, I realized that I would never get to make her proud. And that hurts. That hurts, but it's what saved my life. Because when my grandma died, she died in April, I left Mike in May, moved in where I live now. 7 years later, still the same house. On purpose, because I wanted to be stable once I left him, you know, for Miley. Miley, I'm very proud of. Jason said last night, Jason's my new husband, said last night, like, it's so funny how proud you are of Miley's bedroom all the time. It's because I didn't have that. And my other girls really didn't have that. And I am very proud of her bedroom. It means something to me.
Right.
Yeah. So I moved in my place in May of that year, and I got to work, and I prayed for a job, and I ended up getting a job as a caregiver. And I'm still like broken and lost and tired. I just remember feeling so tired. But I knew that if I was going to do bad, I was going to do bad on my own. So fine, we'll do bad on my own, whatever. But back to working all the time, no time to do bad. So I end up getting a job as a caregiver for a girl named Kristen Garrison, who was the same age as me, and she had breast cancer. And the first day I came to her house, they were having all these renovations done, and it was chaos. And I looked at her, she looked at me, she gave me a dirty look because she was like, what are you doing here? You know, she's the same age as me, she's dying, she doesn't want to deal with me, you know? Yep. But what happened over that summer was that we just, full truth, that June 7th, ex-husband broke in my bedroom window while I was sleeping and beat the living daylights out of me. And Savannah was trying to get through the door, and he opened the door and like toppled over her to get through the front door. Hot mess. Had to go to work the next day anyways. And I had bruises all over my arms. And I was trying to give her a bed bath, and she like reached back, and I had long sleeves on, but she like reached back, and I jerked back, and she reached up from her bed and pulled my sleeves up and was like, oh, you're real. You're not this perfect little caregiver, and I'm this dying invalid. You have issues. And from that minute,
I love it.
From that minute, we became best friends. I spent the night at her house all the time. My kids would go with me over there. Her parents, like, just to this day, adore me. Like, they're almost like parental figures to me now. And I was with her while she was dying. And we talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. It was so safe because anything I told her, she was taking with her. You know, I always tell my sister, I only trust dying people. They're the only ones, because they're the only ones without an agenda. Like, they'll tell you the truth now. They're dying anyway. They don't care. You know, like they're safe. I like safe people. They're safe. Yeah. But she and I became very, very, we became almost like sisters. And I saw her through, and she ended up dying. And when she died, I got a phone call from, she had hospice nurses coming in, and her hospice nurse told this lady, Jill Hoffman, like, you got to meet this girl, and we're going to offer her a job. So I get a call one day, and it's, you know, are you interested in coming to work for hospice? And I'm like, am I interested? Of course I'm interested. But I had no faith in me. Like, I would have never applied for a hospice job because I would have never thought I would get it. Like, no faith left in myself whatsoever. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I would love that. And right around the same time, I had known Jason since junior high, actually, but Jason was boring. Such a good guy. Such a good guy.
The good guys are always boring.
Such a good guy. He was super Christian. Like, I would try to tell him about stuff, and he'd be like, "Do you want to pray together?" And I'd be like,
What?
I was thinking more like Jack Daniels or something. You're so weird. But yeah, he was just really like, he was just a nice guy. And we would go on a date like here and there, and then I'd never talk to him again. And he'd delete me off Facebook because he'd see me like dating a drug dealer or something and be like, oh, well, I guess that's what she's into. So no shot here.
Right.
Then I'd just re-add him later when me and the drug dealer broke up. So we'd go out for dinner again. He'd pay. It was great. All these years later, I'm like hurting one day. I'm like in my bedroom crying and stuff. And he called me. He was like, why don't you just come over to my apartment? I'm like, you have your own apartment? And he was like, don't all grown-up men have their own apartment? And I'm like,
No.
yeah, no, they don't.
A lot
They
of them are still in the basement.
Honey, they
at Mom and
don't.
Dad's house.
They do not have their own apartments. So I went over there and we started hanging out, and he was very kind to me and very sweet. And I was super tired at that time. I remember I would just go over there and sleep all the time. But he was like fine with it. But I was like almost weirded out by that. Like, the first time he tried to give me a foot rub, make him tell you that story because he almost got punched, and I was absolutely convinced he was cheating. Like, why do you want to rub my feet?
There's got to be something wrong.
What's
something wrong.
How rude of you
What
to
did
ask
you-
to rub my feet.
Right.
So basically, that's an admission then. Who is she? But it turned out, no, he's just actually a decent person. He was raised by decent parents. His parents are still married to this day. He knows what a good marriage looks like.
Yeah.
He knows like what true faith in God looks like, not like when, you know, you've been on a bender and you just want to come down, like, please God, make me feel better type stuff. No, he like actually knows what a relationship with God looks like. And he knows how to be alone. He doesn't need validation from like the bar or anyone really, which is incredibly attractive to me because I don't know that I've ever seen someone quite like that. That really, like, I'm at that point, I'm like angry at the world. Like, I don't want to talk to them, you know, like that type of attitude. And he's more like, just let them be them. Let's just be us. And I'm like, is that a thing? Can we do that? Can we not care what other people think and just be still? What? And the whole time I'm thinking like, Grandma, here it is. Thank you. Those couple of months after my grandma went to heaven, and we always laughed, Grandma had a direct line with Jesus. Always laughed about it. Like anything she asked for, it was done.
Yeah.
The minute
Very
she
true.
got to heaven, my life started to change. It did not happen overnight. It was no epiphany. There was no aha moment. There was no come to Jesus moment. And there certainly wasn't any moment that I'll sit here and be like, and from that moment forward,
Right. There it is,
everything
right here. Yeah.
was perfect. Do it. Yeah, no, that's not what happened. Instead, what happened was an enlightenment. I use the word enlightenment because it was almost like a broad. It didn't happen over 24 hours. It happened over a span of time in which I continuously surrendered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, God, you want me to work at this job? I can work at this job. Okay, I'm just going to be quiet and go do it. Okay, God, maybe I won't break up with this guy. Maybe I will see. Maybe I won't trade him in for a more exciting model. Turns out Jason's very exciting. He is so exciting. Like all these years later, love the guy. We have the most fun together. Like it's real, healthy, true. It's real. It's real. And that's what the big difference is.
Right.
It's really real. One of the other things that I want to add that happened during this time as Christians and when we want to reach out and help another person, I don't just say, and I actually went back and forth, like, don't even tell this story because, it's Tim's wife and people will be like, oh, well, she's only saying that because Tim's there or because Mindy's Mindy. For the rest of my days, when I say that the devil was palpable in my life because things got so ugly, the only person that ever made Jesus palpable to me, where I felt like I could really touch what that is, was Mindy Bycroft. And I'll tell you why. Mindy was your stereotypical Christian woman. Always perfect. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not really kidding. Like everyone thinks that. Like when they see her, she holds it together well. She carries herself very well. It's admirable. It's very pretty to watch. But when you don't feel so great about yourself, you don't like that chick. And I made it clear because I'm kind of, she knew, she knew I wasn't very nice to Mindy.
I have to go home to that every
Mindy
night.
Mindy was nice to me. I wasn't very nice to Mindy. It was actually the opposite. But what Mindy did do is how I said, like, Jesus would talk to me when I was little and I would lay really still and try to hear him because I was trying to feel it. I needed something that I could make sure it was real. Like that I could make sure because I didn't trust anything or anyone. But I know that that was real because at that time I could feel that. So all these years later and all these hard times later and all this messy walk later, I was so broken after Miley in particular, and knowing that I failed. Even with her, I failed. And it was no turning back from that. Like, I just hated myself and everything else. I cared, but I didn't even care anymore because I was too tired to care anymore. Like, I was just done. But there was that calling, constantly that voice. And for whatever reason, occasionally I would call Mindy. And there were a couple of times that Minnie, don't get mad that I'm telling you the story. There was a couple of times that she knew that I had been up all night. She knew how high I was. She knew, and she didn't even care. She came just like Jesus does, and she sat right with this sinner in the Starbucks in Kenosha on Lewis and Highway 50, I believe, and would have sat there all day long. She didn't care. There was no hurry. She wasn't stopping. She wasn't going in for the first hug goodbye. I'll sit here all day. I don't care. I like you anyways. And it was literally like that. And she made Jesus palpable to me because I was like, that's what they say Jesus did. There are good Jesus followers, and I believe in Jesus, so I want to be with those guys. But at some points I wanted to be Buddhist but believe in Jesus. Like, I just want to be with these guys because they're nicer, but I'm going to believe in Jesus too. That was really a thought. Like, can you do that? Can you mix religions? I think you can make them up if you want. I don't think there's anyone policing this, but well, maybe you.
Maybe. Let's talk later.
Anyway, but at that time, and that was huge to me. And because of all of those people at that time, the way that it went down, the intricate way that I believe my grandma and Jesus planned together, probably, something just started to change. And a big thing with that too was Jason would tell me every day, like, you are so smart. You are so smart. You're so pretty. You're so beautiful. Like, every single day. And like, I would go over there and try to catch him cheating or something because I was like crazy. And he's like sitting there eating a bucket of chicken. Like, are you going to
Most good guys eat bucket chicken. Yeah.
Are your kids in the car? Do they have to come up to you? No, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, he was like just a nice person. It was cool to see because I was not surrounded with nice people. And actually, I shouldn't say that. They actually probably are.
Oh, you're
nice
waiting
people.
for the bottom to fall out. You're waiting for the second shoe to fall. Whatever the
Always.
case, you know.
Always.
Because this has been the pattern.
Always.
Yeah.
And nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. And so nowhere to fall back on. But what I learned is that's so false. That's not the truth. It's not true. I always had somewhere to go. I always had someone to fall back on. He was always there, and he will always be there. And it might not look how you think it's supposed to look, or it might be hard, and it might even be really awful, but there is a purpose for that. So you can go through these hard things in life, right? Because they're going to happen. They're going to happen to all of us. And you can not cling to Jesus, and you can try to do it on your own. But then you're right. Where do you fall when the bottom comes out? Then what? And so my faith just grew, and I wanted to be, I want to be with Jesus now. Like, I am so close with God now, but at the time it wasn't even that. It was this very like, methodical, like, okay, if you ask me to do this, I'm going to do this. And even if it doesn't go right, I'm not going to stop having faith. And it was that choice. It was that choice. Like, even if it doesn't go right, but I'm still going to keep making the next right decision every day. And every single day, I'm going to keep on doing that. And as time went on, again, it didn't happen overnight. Every day for a long time, it was the same thing tomorrow. But as time went on, I started to like grow. And I started to really feel better, and I started to forgive people, and I started to let people forgive me. And that really was a big thing, was letting people love me. It turned out that people wanted to love me. I wouldn't let them because
there was a barrier.
I didn't trust them.
Yeah, there was a wall.
Right.
I didn't trust them.
Yeah.
And so, even still, as this story goes, now I managed to get myself healthy enough and clean enough after several years. It takes a long time. It really did. It took several years before my intellect came back to where I don't even think it's still where it could be, but back to a point where I can be comfortable and I can study things, including things of the Bible. Like I'm currently studying Lydia, who I absolutely love. I have all these purple markers right now because it reminds me that like every time I write in my binder for my work, I write in purple because it reminds me of Lydia, and that like and it keeps me grounded in the way. Well, okay, let me not yet. Okay, so really quick. All right, so all these years later, now I'm like falling in love with Jesus. I am feeling faithful, and I'm so grateful now that I just want to give it back, right? I just want to give it back. And the best way I know to give it back is the way that would make me the most uncomfortable. I'm going to go stand in front of all these Christians who I am terrified of to this day. I'm terrified of them, a lot of them. I really am.
Of Christians or just people?
All of the above. All of the above. All of the above. They're scary.
Christians are people.
Are scary.
I mean, yeah,
because you never know, like what they might do. Okay. You know, they're just people are scary. So I decide that I am gonna sing for the Lord in front of all these people, and my husband's got my back, and he's like helping me practice, and his dad is a musician too, so Jay knows a little bit about music, and that's super fun, and we're like practicing for a couple weeks singing like gospel music together. Way fun, yay. So I like build up all this courage, and I've like got the armor of God, so I feel 10 feet tall, and I come into church and I audition, and I never sang like that again. Sorry, guys. It was great. But it was awesome. It was really good. And so I go home and I'm like so excited. Like, Jason, I did it. I sang. Called my sister. Boom. 262 numbers calling my other line. I'm like, that's got to be Jim, right? Jim's our old leader.
I'm like,
so, it's got to be Jim to tell me that I made it on the team, right? Blah, 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 blah. Nope. It's the Kenosha County Sheriff's Department letting me know that an absolutely horrible, awful, earth-shattering tragedy had happened. Also should mention that during this awful, horrible, tragic, earth-shattering moment, my palpable friend, Mindy, sat in that police department all night long that night. So make you a good friend that's like that, because without her, I honestly, I don't even know where I would be. I honestly love her forever. And she has no idea. She has no clue what she did for me. And I'm sure many, many, many other people.
Right.
Anyway, so now I'm at a crossroads. At the very minute that I'm giving every single thing to God, going out on this limb, I'm putting myself out there for the Lord.
There's
I'm
that southern
sing in
we're talking about.
church.
There it goes.
There it is.
It's coming in.
And my whole world blows up. And now I have a choice to make. And I clung on with both hands. And I continue to this day, 3 years later, to cling with both hands. Through that, when I was in the hospital a few years ago, back during the really dark days, they told me that I needed to go on Social Security, that I was incapable of working because of my diagnoses. I'm diagnosed with severe PTSD and major depressive disorder. They actually even did a case study on me at the hospital because it was that apparently intriguing, the way that my mind works. And that was not true. That was a lie. I went on to, I started going for my associate's degree because my brain told me that's all I really could probably handle. And then one day I was driving to CLC for my associates in nursing and said, no, I don't want my associates in nursing. I want a bachelor's degree. I'm going to go to university. I could do that. So I did. I went and applied for a university, and they had me come in and test, and I blew that test out of the water. I actually got a $1,000 grant to get started because I did such a good job. And this is a girl that was told she couldn't work, and that I needed to be on medication, and I just so many things. And that was not true. What I needed was to be healthy. And what I needed was all the things that the Bible talks about. The Bible talks about all of these things about, what women are created for and to be. And it's basically like a guidebook, really. It's a book of instructions of this is the way it's supposed to go. But in case it won't, and we're going to tell you in this book that it won't,
right.
in case it doesn't, this is your instructions on how to not get caught in all that sin, because what happens when all that sin comes, it leads to another hard time and another hard time and another heartbreak and another thing that eventually affects your brain, obviously, affects your ability to care for your children properly. You cannot be an addict and a good mother at the same time. And for a long time, I told myself I was an addict and a good mother, and that was a lie. That's not possible.
Right.
I love my children dearly, and I love who they are and where they are today, and I am so grateful. And I will continue to try to be a great big shining light in their life, because one thing we do have going for us, folks, is that our kids are children for like this much time.
Right. Doesn't it go that fast?
And then, but guess what? Then they're adults for like this much time. And which time do you really think is more important to be like steadily there? And I'm firm on this. Like, yeah, I screwed up and I wish I didn't. Obviously you don't want your kids to feel hardships, but if I had to do it over again, thank you, Jesus, for letting me be screwed up then and not now. Because if I was better then and now screwed up, my poor kids, right?
Yeah, and
that
part
would
of
be
that,
a good alternative.
You know this as well as I do. That the complications of raising children never go away.
Right.
They just get more complicated.
Yes, it does.
So you kind of need to be like clear-headed.
Right.
And
It does.
Yeah.
But you know what? How important is it that having all this knowledge in this little mind of mine and this life experience that, I have every reason in the world to be mad. And I have every reason in the world to be broken. It's okay. I used to be really disappointed in myself. And I used to really hate myself for that. And when I think about my life now, I'm like, what if you were watching that as a movie? And how would you feel about that little girl? Would you think she's a loser? Would you think that she deserves bad things? No, your heart would break. You would want to help her. Right. And so now, having that insight, I want to help people. And I went into hospice nursing because my objective on the planet Earth now is to make people feel better. And whether that's through using comfort meds at the end of life when people are in a lot of pain, or whether that's pouring my heart out on the stage to sing to God, even if I'm super uncomfortable, if that's going to help another person to be like, you know what, I remember Brianna's story and I feel so lost right now, but look at her. She did do that. She did find another side, and she did it for a long enough time that I think I did it for a long enough time now that I think people can trust it a little bit more now, as opposed to maybe 3 or 4 years ago when they were kind of trying to figure it out. I hope they can trust it. Yeah. Definitely life is not even close to perfect, but I have a net now. I know it's there. I can see it there. I can feel it there. And if I walk out of here and everything falls apart, and should a great big tragedy happen, or should life happen,
and life is going to happen,
and life will happen, I can be more stable now. I can handle it better because the Lord created me.
Well, you said something earlier that I think has been a pattern that I've watched through this story. And you said at one time, but I think it really engages all of your story, which is, and it goes back to the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego faith, what I call an even though type of faith, which, you struggled with it for a little bit, but now you're coming on the other side where, God, I'm going to believe in you, and I know that you're going to pull me through, and I know you're going to work in my life, and I know this. But even if it doesn't go the way I planned, or even if the bottom falls out, and even if, things in life happen, I still have faith. I still trust.
Right.
I know that net is there.
Right.
And the great thing is, I think something else that you've learned, and I appreciate you using my wife. I'll never be able to go home now, and
the Lord used her.
yeah, she is amazing. Actually, I love my wife, and I can't say enough for my wife, and who she is and how she works in other people's lives. Shout out. But I think what has also happened is that has opened you up to other people, trusting other people to some degree or another. You hear people that go through some of the circumstances that you've been through, and there's a wall of resistance to trust in people that some people have never gleaned that back.
Yeah.
And can you imagine going through life not being able to trust anybody, anytime, any place?
Right.
Yeah.
And how lonely and the pressure that mounts. in
Yeah.
That you don't have a safety, and especially if you don't have the safety net of God.
Yeah.
On top of that,
Yeah.
my goodness.
Or the safety net of just like somewhere else to go. Like there was no parents' house to move back into. There was no, if I lose my apartment, I can move in with XYZ. There was none of that.
Right.
Like there was nowhere to go. You need to figure it out from a very, very, very early age. And that's really hard. And also in a lot of ways, I was still expected to be a normal kid. And so there was that pressure, like stop crying,
Right.
why are you rebelling? Well, gee, let me figure it out. I don't know why.
Right.
I don't know why I'm like this. But at 40, I can say, scientifically, I was like that because there are certain things that children need, both biblically and worldly, in order to be a healthy, stable version coming up, and sometimes people are better capable of that. And other times people are more the emotional, artsy, get lost in the world. I'm going to listen to Freddie Mercury sing the song 100 times and cry in my waterbed.
Right.
It's a true story. Like I would get lost in like other music as a child, like lost in the music. It would make it go away.
Go away. You were looking for something. There was something in your life. You could see it. I mean, there's pictures of God showing up, rescuing you, being there with you, seeing what you were doing, and you could sense it at times. But there was still that desire for something. Whether and as your story played out, you searched for it in a lot of different ways.
Right.
The escape, the companionship, looking for that trust, looking for, as you said it, men and women come into relationships with different strengths, different weaknesses, and we can compensate in those areas, right? Which is an amazing thing. And I think you were looking for that. You looked for it in wrong places, but then ultimately you found it in Jason, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so God was there.
He makes
and
great tacos.
He does make great tacos.
And by the way, thank you for allowing us to be part of your family.
Oh, absolutely.
We wouldn't have it any other way.
Because you guys feed us well.
We love having you guys as a part of our family. Thank you for letting us be a part of your family.
Absolutely.
Honestly, like even when my sister, at the height of my darkness, probably the only person in the world I really ever felt like I truly had is my sister.
Yeah.
So when she was like, "Oh no, I'm turning away from this darkness that you're sitting in, and I'm going to go hang out in the light over here." That hurt.
I will
And
never.
I don't mean that in a way like you did something wrong.
No.
What I mean it is like in a way of like, wait a minute, I need to protect her from you guys too. Like everything.
Right.
Like that's how I'm built. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to protect her.
Yeah, I will never forget one time I had called you and it was when you were in your dark moment and you wanted to hang out. And I was busy that day and you were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I got plans with the church fam today. And she was like, I'm your family. Click.
Right.
And I was like, oh.
Yeah, sorry about
But
that.
she
It was a little
Yeah.
bit like that though. Like,
But-
wait, that's the only person I have. And now she's going to hang out with the mean Christians. This is awful.
I think that something that I have always admired about you, and I'm admiring it as you were just going through your whole life story, is your desire to really never give up. Like you said, like you were just done and you quit. But like, I'm like looking at the story. I'm like, all right, so you went back with your ex again, like gave him another shot. You even had another fourth child to try and get it right on purpose.
Thank God.
And
I
then-
love her so much.
But then you also, church was something that scared you and Christians scared you. And that's because I know you had situations where you heard Christian, people talking about you before. And so, but you were even like, so what? Now I'm going to come and I'm going to give it a try again. So you just really you never gave up, even though when you were feeling like you did. So that's something I admire about you. But
And the part of the story that we didn't even get to till now is, didn't you take a little trip by yourself?
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about that because that's actually I'm so happy you brought that up.
Because that was another one of those
That
times where you're just like,
was
okay, God.
humongous. Actually, that was humongous,
Yeah.
and I
we all thought she was
absolutely-
crazy.
Everyone thought I was crazy, but
I still think you're crazy.
Yeah.
But
you know what?
That was
It
cool.
was as a woman, best thing I ever did for myself because I needed to do that. I needed to go and learn to trust myself. You talk about no net. Everything's in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish.
She went to go.
Well, yeah, I was
didn't
going to say,
where you went.
explain where,
Okay.
because we're talking.
So during all this, while I'm in school in university, of course, I always want to okay, since I conquered this, what do I want to do now? Well, I want to leave the country. I want to travel. I want to help people around the world, not just here. And so I started researching, and I found a place in Guatemala that you could go and work in a nursing home there. And so I bought plane tickets, and I stayed in a Mayan woman's house. Fabulous cooking, by the way. We couldn't even communicate, but it was awesome. I had to walk to work every day in Guatemala, and my job was probably 5 or 6 miles from the home I was in. But I had to take a chicken wagon, so I'd jump in the back of the chicken wagon and
and send us pictures.
and send pictures yeah, look what I'm doing. But no, it was Monday and Tuesday. I was so scared that I was there. I got there on a Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, I was the noise. Everything's new when you go to a different country. The noises, everything could be a little bit overwhelming. Nothing's in English. The people
Right?
are all
Oh,
strange.
yeah, I get it.
No one knows me.
Yeah.
There's no 911 to call.
There's
What do I
chickens
do in
and
an
wagons.
emergency,
There's
right?
no net here.
There's nothing to do. It's me and me alone. No nets. But that third day, I walked to where the chicken wagons were, which was probably a good 1.5 miles, 2 miles from where I was staying. And then it would just drive you the rest of the way around the bend. It was really cool, actually. And I figured out my way to work on these streets with no names, right? And when I saw the chicken wagon and realized that I figured it out how to get to work and on time, and I figured this out on my own right here.
Mm-hmm.
And another cool thing about Guatemala is there's churches everywhere. The spirituality there is so good, and the people there were so good. They were kind and sweet, and it's just a really cool place. And so I did things sat outside of this one just beautiful cathedral that was in ruins. Half of it was gone. And I wrote poems, and because I'm a little bit artsy, I like music and poetry and book reading and stuff like that. Painting. Yeah, I like that kind of outlets.
Right,
I'm into it. So I spent time I was a mom, at 16. So I never knew who Bree was. I was mom from sophomore year of high school.
Sure.
So that week, I took the time to really find out who I am and what I'm made of and what I'm capable of. And what I found out while I was there was that it was really, really cool. And I tell one story about there was a church kind of on the way home when I would walk to the chicken wagons and then back to where I was staying, and I would stop there and pray every day. Their doors were always open and there was always people going in and out praying, so I felt comfortable to walk in. And one day I'm on my knees, because that's in Guatemala, like they are on their knees, which I think is cool. I think that is awesome. So I'm here, I'm on my knees, and I'm really just praying. And I hear, and I'm praying about like, I'm being grateful, but I'm also praying for like healing and like, Lord, don't let me down. A little bit of that. Like, here I am, Lord, look what I've done. I'm in Guatemala now, so everything should be fine, right? No. So I'm like praying. Well, actually, kind of, yes. But what he showed me, this is what I mean when I say Jesus speaks to me, and I've got a million of these stories. Find me in the foyer. Tell me to pick one. I will give one. There's a million. This is what I'm talking about. I'm on my knees in this church, and I hear, and I'm still just, I can hear it, but I'm praying, and I'm like, God, please, just be here with me, and don't leave me alone. I don't want to be alone. I want to be, just help me to give you my all, like help me help you prayer, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's getting closer and closer. And I open my eyes and I look over, and there is a man with no legs, and he is going like this, and he is pulling himself up to the front of the cathedral with no legs. And at that very minute, as I'm praying the help me help you prayer, he goes right past me, happily, no legs, but here he goes. And in that moment, I'm like, Okay, I hear you. I know I have legs. Thank you.
Right.
But like metaphorically legs.
Oh,
like,
right.
Mine and his stories are going to be very different, but his face of peace as he went up, as I pray this help me help you prayer, really started to make me realize, like, maybe it's not about that. Like, maybe it's not about that. Maybe it's about like what, not help me help you any, at all. Lord doesn't need my help. Obviously I need his, but even maybe more importantly, that guy, these people, there's so many people in the dark. Mm-hmm. There's so many people with that weight on their shoulders right now, getting the side eye from people that don't understand what they're going through.
I want you to talk. We're going to be wrapping up here shortly, but there's something that I think would be important. If somebody's watching today, if somebody tunes in, they're hearing your story, the one part that I've loved was how you viewed Christians in your dark place, actually, because I think there's a lot of people there, And I'm not trying to take away from what God does in your life, what Jesus does in your life, but many times he puts people in place, and I hope that it's the church. I hope it's Christians. I hope it's people around us that will speak into people's lives. But, somebody who's like feeling like God's not there. I don't sense Jesus. I believe there's a God, but I sure wish he would work differently than he is now.
I need a safety net.
I need a safety net.
Or more scary, I believe there's a God, but I know that I don't deserve him.
Right, where you were at. I mean, So speak to that person right now and say, here's my advice. Here's what you need to do.
Okay. If I was speaking to somebody that felt the way that I have felt, in the way of feeling like that there's a God, but you don't deserve him, or if you're questioning if there's a God, I would encourage you to heed my 7-year-old advice and listen. Just listen, because we are all made in his vision and in his purpose. And you have a purpose. There are no mistakes or accidents. And sometimes we just need to figure out what our purpose is. Just because you don't know what it is doesn't mean you don't have one. And I know it can be scary. It can be this world is, it can be a very scary, scary, scary place, even for the strongest of women like myself. I would encourage you to reach out to myself or someone you feel comfortable with, and I would encourage you to share those feelings, not so that somebody can prove you wrong, because I know how, if your mind works like mine, you weren't proving me wrong, but rather just maybe give you some tools of maybe they can help you figure out the steps of reaching a healthy mind and a healthy heart. And the only way to do that is through Jesus Christ. There are billions and trillions of people that would agree with that, and therefore it cannot be not true. But besides that, on a spiritual level, the peace that comes with that is really truly found when you lay still, when your back slides down the wall, and he's with you. He's with you. And if you need that to be palpable, I would love to pay that forward. Thank you, Mindy Bycroft. So
That's what we're here for,
Yep.
right? That's
Absolutely.
what we're here for.
yeah.
So, yeah, you said the words, and sometimes we're like, it says in Scripture, anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't put ourselves in the anyone category. But it's true. When
Right.
it says anyone, it means anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another part of your story that I think people need to hear, which is you may not necessarily be as broken as you think,
Right.
or what other people tell you.
Right.
Right.
And there's
a lot
healing.
of times it's really, I mean, my voice in my head was louder than anyone else's. It was a lot of me thinking something was wrong with me. And like Tim mentioned earlier, that is a chemical thing that when you've been through childhood trauma, sometimes these unhealthy and irrational thoughts are in our minds, and that happens to a lot of people. But just know that it's not true. It's just not true. And if I could help shine that light.
There's a
for you.
brokenness in all of us to some degree or another, but
Yes.
Jesus is the one who
Right.
brings it all back together.
Yeah.
He really does. It sounds hokey. It may sound cliche, may sound like some kind of religious formula. That's not the point. The brokenness that can be healed is a man named Jesus Christ, and he brings a powerful healing through the Holy Spirit that comes into our lives. It's no joke.
Yeah.
No.
It works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love you guys.
I love you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for sharing your
That was
story.
great.
Like that. That was
Bold. Number one, it was bold, and I appreciate that. And but
Yeah.
your constant thought through all that is pointing to Jesus.
Yeah.
And we're around broken and messy people. They all have their own story.
Yeah.
Jesus is the one that brings healing, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
You guys are an amazing duo. I was a little intimidated to sit at the same table with both of you at the same time.
I was very good.
to
I
be
stayed
honest.
quiet and I didn't. I was like so worried I was going to interrupt all your stories and be like, but also this happened, and I'm like, no, you're gonna behave yourself. But I'm happy to be here today. I'm happy you're my sister. I love you to pieces.
I love you too.
And anybody watching today that's feeling like you are not good enough or you can't be good enough for God. I mean, this is a woman that has been through trauma, abuse, addiction, you name it. Told she was going to live on
Abuse,
Social Security.
addiction, like
just
pretty much
all
everything.
kinds of
Well,
stuff.
let's be honest. Even since we've known each other, and those times you picked up my wife's phone and picked up your phone and called my wife, you're a Lifetime Channel story.
Yes,
Let's
I
be
get that
honest.
a lot,
Yeah,
actually.
no, we
I
say
told you the hospital did a case study.
I'm always like, you cannot make this stuff up. Like,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
happening? But seriously,
One
here
day
you
I'll
are.
write a book.
I think you should.
One day.
You need to be jotting these things down because
now,
think you should.
Yeah.
just super fun. Just the ending, not the ending, but the beginning of a new story. I graduated school. I'm remarried. We're happily married. It'll be 6 years in April. A healthy marriage, not one that is abusive in any way. And he's wonderful to our daughter Miley, who he raises as his own, and she is being raised in a very loving, normal home. And and he loves my 3 big girls too. Yeah. And we're able to together provide them with the structure of a normal marriage to kind of give them something to look to.
Yeah.
Remember, your kids' lives are this long as adults. So
and you just recently graduated, right? When did you graduate officially?
It's a funny story. So I actually graduated officially. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in nursing in August. I right away was offered a position for the same company that I had been working for ever since Kristen died, and I was able to get the job there in the same unit that she died in. Like, I would go in her room up until August. I took the job, and it's so funny how life is, because what I was starting to notice, I was working all the time. Like, I wasn't making it to my life group, and now life group is important to me. I know I talked a lot of crap about Christians, but they turn out to be pretty cool. Like, thank God for them, because they help me out through my my life group. Shout out to them. I love those ladies. But I wasn't able to make it to my life group. I wasn't able to sing in church because I was always working, and so I was like, you know what, this isn't working. And I had a conversation with God about that, and literally in a few days, I ended up with a job offer that really was mind-blowing. It's not an entry-level job, let's say that. Yeah. And I'm now able to come to worship and church and do podcasts at 4:00 in the afternoon. Now I can be a part of, the things that keep me, not only that keep me humble, but that keep me on the straight and narrow a little bit, like I'm never alone anymore. Right. I'm never alone. I'm never alone because of Jesus, but I'm really never alone. Like I said, when that tragedy went down, Mindy was right there. When I'm having a hard time, I have 15 people I can call, I have parties to go to this month. It's weird. I'm like, why do you guys want me to come to? I still struggle. Yeah. See, why do you want to
you're hanging out with the church
why do you want me
family.
To come to your party?
What do you want from me? What do you want from me?
But I'm going to the parties.
Nice.
So there you go.
But I'm your family.
Right.
All right.
Well, God has done an amazing work in your life, and He continues to do so. I can't wait to see. Look at. I always say this. Look at the last 5 years. Look at the last 10 years, and where God has brought you. And I think of that in my own life. I can't wait to see what the next 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, super exciting.
Hey, thanks for watching Casting Points. We are glad that you checked us out. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. And punch, right, Joey? Punch.
Smash
the little bell, notification bell.
Oh, smash that bell. I get it.
Thank you.
Smash that bell.
Well, technically, it's like smash the like button and then click the bell and then notifications.
I'll never get all the wording right. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you share it. We'll talk to you soon.
Like picturing people punching their computer screens.
What am I supposed to do?